Bob, thank you for being a part of the Media Revolutionary series. How did you get into this business?
It was very unscripted. I went to college. I was a classics English lit major and was very focused on journalism. I never in college thought I would get into advertising. And I think what inspired me to get into advertising, once I got out of school, I was thinking about careers. And as much as I love journalism, and this is a time when journalism was what I call legitimate, journalists weren't making a lot of money. I was the first kid in my family to go to college. My father was a Teamster. I said, I have to pick a career where I'm actually going to make an income. And advertising appealed to me because it combined some degree of journalism with creativity and also business. I always had a love of the business world. So I felt like advertising was the perfect kind of venture for that.
And first job?
First job, and I feel very fortunate, was at Doyle Dane Bernbach in like 1977. And I thought it was a magical place. I mean, Bill Bernbach was alive. He was very involved in the agency. And it had a huge impact on my career and how I saw the business.
And did you ever have a mentor?
I would say that starting my career at DDB, Bill Bernbach was my mentor because he was very hands-on. He'd more or less been the catalyst behind the creative revolution in the 60s. And as a young account trainee, I actually got to work on my first pro bono account, which was the Skin Cancer Foundation, which was his account. So he was somebody that, in my mind, was always the inspiration and the role model for what I wanted to be in advertising.
You've had a fabulous career, and many people don't realize that in any fabulous career there's always some setbacks that happen.
Correct.
What was the biggest one you ever had, and how did you deal with it?
I think for me, when I lost business, now we all lose business in the ad business, it's pretty common. But I think there were certain times when I lost business where, because I take everything very personally and emotionally, and I remember there was a point, actually it was in J. Walter Thompson, New York, where we lost a lot of Microsoft business. And that was very painful because I thought we had done great work, and there are times when you lose business and you can see why a client would do that, but this was a case where I thought it was completely unfair. And it's painful because if you lose business, you have to deal with the financial consequences as it relates to people, and who wants to do that? Because at the end of the day, these decisions are made in a very cold, abstract way, but there's always the human element that you have to factor in.
How'd you deal with that defeat?
You know what? Luckily, I'm an optimist by nature, so my attitude has always been in this business to just never focus on the past, is to look forward, and my attitude was just replace the business and move on. And what else can you do? But I think that's always gotten me through all the ups and downs of advertising over my career.
Now, recognizing you have many more great accomplishments in front of you, if you look back, what was the greatest one?
I'm really torn on this. I would say that when I took over J. Walter Thompson as the CEO in 2003 and 2004, I was faced with a brand that was really viewed as a dinosaur. And my number one mission was to really make the brand more relevant and really to keep it alive and contemporary. So I would say getting JWT to the 2014 150th anniversary, I felt a huge sense of accomplishment, that we had navigated our way in terms of creative reputation, digital capability, that I felt like to get J. Walter Thompson to the 150th, I felt was pretty significant for me personally and also in a business sense.
And you restored the original name.
And we went back to the original name.
Now, I'm a new college graduate, right out of school. I don't know what I'm going to do. Why would you suggest they get into our business?
Well, when you say get into our business now, it's more complicated, right? Because if you say get into advertising, you've got everybody saying they're in the advertising business. But why I would say go to either J. Walter Thompson or a company like ours would be that there's very few businesses in the world where you have the opportunity to go in and day out and be creative and come up with creative ideas that you can translate to business. And I think that's the unique combination, that no matter what happens in the world with technology and digital, that at the end of the day, advertising agencies, if they're doing their job, the essence of it is a creative idea that is really unparalleled versus all those other wannabes out there.
And what piece of advice would you give them to be successful?
The number one piece of advice I would give somebody is work hard. I'm a New England guy. I grew up with a very strong work ethic, and I think that I'm a big believer in that field of dreams idea, build it and they will come. I think, work hard, focus on whatever the job is, and do that job to the best possible degree. Don't worry about the politics, the posturing, and I'm optimistic you'll do really well.
And if you look ahead now, industry certainly has changed a lot over the last 10 years, but look ahead, 5 to 10 years. Where's it going to be, and what's going to drive the change?
I think that's a really good question. I think the easiest thing to say is that digital and technology will change the business, which I think it will, but I think in 5 years, you know how today we say, well, look at what Apple did to the music industry. Look at what Airbnb is doing to hotels. Look at what Uber is doing to taxi services. I have this instinct that in 5 years, I don't know who it'll be or what it'll be, but that conversation will happen as it relates to advertising and communications. It'll be, look at what so-and-so, or look at what's happened to that business. But I see that as a positive thing, because I always think, I think advertising's part of the capitalist engine, and I think there's always a certain amount of creative destruction that has to happen with capitalism.
And we're always going to need those creative minds.
Correct, right? No, I think it's exciting. I mean, I think the other aspect of it too is when you were asking the question, the other thought that came into my head is the millennial generation, and I know that's a very overused word right now, but I think there's a whole generation of people that are coming up that have been so brought up and so comfortable with technology, whether it's the client side or the agency side. I think all those people are just inherently going to want to work differently. But what that looks like, I couldn't tell. If I could tell you, you and I would go do it. So,
Bob, thank you for being a media revolutionary.
Thank you, David.